Hi, welcome to our channel. We're the Simple Teachers. I'm Whitney, this is Angie, and today we have another Teacher Center video. Make sure you check out our Teacher Center playlist to check out all the other Teacher Center videos we have done for you guys. Today you're going to see a Tier 1 instruction of a comprehension lesson using two strategies, summarize and connect.
Yeah.
So hope you enjoy. Let's get watching.
All right.
Today, class, we're going to read the story called Biblioburro. What is it called?
Biblioburro.
I've added it on our genre chart already. It's a nonfiction text, but it's written kind of like a fiction text. We'll hear dialogue between people, but this story has actually happened. So the things that people say to each other might not be exactly how they said them in the past, but this actually happened, and it's a true story from Colombia. Where did this story happen? Colombia. That's a country, not in America, North America, where we live. We've got the United States, then we have Mexico underneath us, and then underneath Mexico is South America. And in South America, there's a country called Colombia. And this story is going to take place in Colombia. Make this picture in your head. Lots of hills and mountains. And the towns aren't close together like where we live. We have towns really close together. In this story in Colombia, the towns are going to be spread far apart. So that will help us kind of understand this story. We will also need to know that the word burro means donkey. What does burro mean?
Donkey.
So this title means donkey, and biblio means library. Biblioburro will mean a donkey library. We'll figure out what in the world will happen with those donkeys as we read. But mirrors. Good readers?
Good readers.
Use strategies.
Use strategies.
To help them understand what they read.
Help us understand what they read.
We can summarize.
We can summarize.
Just to say what happened.
Just to say what happened.
In just a few words.
In just a few words.
The most important parts.
The most important part.
Good readers also
Good readers also
make connections.
make connections.
We think about
We think about
what the words
what the
the
words
author wrote reminded us of.
reminded us of.
When we do this,
When we do
it
this,
helps us understand what we read.
it helps us understand what we read.
So let's begin.
All right. So you did a great job right there, giving the background knowledge that they need prior to reading that text and activating the strategies that they're going to use.
One thing I wish I would have said was biblioburro. I never said Spanish.
Oh.
So if you're teaching that text, you say in Spanish, this means donkey. I never said that. So
Oh. Okay.
I noticed something that I'll do better next time.
Very
right?
good. Always improving. But yeah, it was concise. It was explicit. You got two things: background knowledge and activating the strategies. So we're ready to start the text now. In just two minutes is
Yeah.
how long you took pre.
Yep. And I chose that background knowledge just by reading the text, thinking what was it central on. And I felt like the setting of the story was going to be so critical because it's super different from where my students
Yeah.
were from, and they needed that activated to really understand the story.
Yeah, I think that's a good choice.
Okay.
Great.
Biblioburro, a true story from Colombia. Deep in the jungles of Colombia, there lives a man who loves books. His name is Luis. As soon as he reads one book, he brings home another. Soon the house is filled with books. His wife, Diana, grumbles. What are we going to do? Eat books with our rice? Luis thinks long and hard. At last, an idea pops into his head. I can bring my books into the faraway hills to share with those who have none. One burro could carry books, and another burro could carry me and more books. So So I'm going to stop right there and summarize. You summarize with me on your papers, but I'm going to summarize. I'm thinking, who did the author write about what happened? Oh yeah, Luis. And I know this real character, Luis, loves books. Luis loves books. And he keeps bringing so many home that he came up with a plan to share them. So I'm going to finish my summary by saying he has so many, he wants to share them. That's very kind of Luis. A connection I'm making, I'm thinking of what this reminds me of. I know that we have someone in our school who has lots of books and wants to share them. Mrs. Hunt, our librarian. So our own librarian reminds me of Luis. So I'm going to write Mrs. Hunt shares her books too. Mrs. Hunt reminds me, that's my connection, of Luis. Pencils in its home. You might not be done, and that's okay.
All right, so that was Whitney modeling the two strategies. And one thing I need to point out is that you have pre-thought of what you're going to say before this lesson ever began. So you've written, even though you didn't write it down and have it pre-written for your kids, you have already written somewhere in some notes what you were going to write down.
I've already done the work and it's sitting on my desk right there where I'm writing.
Yeah.
Because I love how we've talked about this before for just management purpose. If something happens and my thinking goes, I don't have to think about it first. It's right there.
Yeah.
So if I forget because I'm a teacher and doing a million things,
Yeah.
right? It's right there. So I've already done the work. That's exactly right.
And I think that that is so valuable for just the flow of your lesson, that you're able to think about your students, think about how your reading sounds, think about these kids over here that I need to go walk over to and stand closer to. I don't have to remember, what was my connection that I was supposed to make?
Yep.
It's fine. I already have that written down. It's sitting right there at my desk.
Yeah.
So don't forget that part of what makes it so smooth is she's done the work before.
Plus, you have to make sure those strategies are going to fit with the text anyways.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
only way by doing that is to do it.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly
so
right.
I had already done it.
Yeah. And this model, you held it yourself. You don't turn it off to the students. Even though you're having them write, you're really not holding them accountable for that thinking at this point.
Yep.
You're just having them do that to keep them engaged.
Exactly.
It's an engagement or motivation strategy right now.
Yep.
So we didn't really see you handing off the thinking yet, but we should see that, and we'll watch for that gradual release of the thinking.
All right, let's continue reading. We're going to summarize and make connections. Think of what we're reminded of. Luis buys 2 sturdy little burros. Burros are
Donkey.
good. So Luis buys 2 sturdy little burros. He names them Alpha and Beta. He builds crates to hang on their backs and paints signs. Biblioburro, the burro library. There's his crate. Then Diana fills the crates with books. Every week, Luis and Alpha and Beto set off across the countryside to faraway villages in the lonely hills. This week, they traveled to El Tormento. So now we're going to stop and summarize again. Think in your head what just happened. So think. And let's do this together. So I need some help. Help me. What just happened? How could we summarize? Yes.
Luis was traveling to
Okay. Luis started traveling.
so there's a lot of books and he's giving out to people
Louise started traveling. I'm going to add with donkeys. I feel like that's really important because the name of the story is Biblioburros, right? So I better get that in there, huh? Louise started traveling with 2 donkeys to share his books. I'm even going to write the word biblioburro. So I remembered what's that called. Now I'm going to think of what this reminds me of. So I'm thinking. A connection is what this reminds me of. What's my connection? Let's see. He's riding donkeys and traveling to share his books. Who can help me out? Let's help each other. What's a connection we can make?
Luis is my friend, but he's a different person.
Oh, so this reminds you of a Luis you know. So that could be your connection. I know a Luis. But it's not the same Luis, but that's your connection. It reminded you of the Luis you know. So if you know a Luis, that could be your connection. I used to have a student named Luis.
You did?
Uh-huh. Maybe it's the Luis you know. He's older now, but I know a Luis. Does anyone have a different connection? Let's help each other. Something else this part of the story reminds you of?
Is that Luis Spanish? Yeah, that's the Luis.
Maybe.
It reminds me of traveling to places.
Oh, you travel to places, so that's what it reminds you of. So you can put that. I travel to places too. Just like Luis does. Those are great connections. It's what it's reminding you of. Okay, so we're gonna need to stop right there.
All right, so we got to see where you go from I do to we start to have them have some control of the thinking. And this is my hardest part of the lessons because you don't want to throw the strategy and the thinking on your students, but a lot of them aren't ready to do the thinking.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's awkward because we may only have 1 or 2 students that can do it at this point. And so sometimes it turns to one of your higher students becoming a new model.
Definitely. The students who shared were the students who were my better comprehenders of the class.
Yeah.
So I just try to think of it as it's now their opportunity to share good thinking with the rest of the class. It's not a time to draw sticks because this is low pressure, right? We're still in modeling. They're helping me out is often what I say. Sometimes to boost the engagement, I may say, pretend I'm a kindergartner, help me out, teach me how to summarize and whatever the other strategy is. Teach me now, So help me out, teach me, but it's volunteer, right?
Volunteer. I'm often kind of quick to go turn to your partner or in a small group talk about and then ask for a volunteer so they can try out their thinking before they share out. But
you'll see that coming up.
Yeah, it feels more like you do together. So I have a hard time knowing, am I in we do or am I in you do together? So I struggle with this part of the lesson. You can decide for yourself which is more scaffolded and less scaffolded for your classroom.
Yeah.
What works for your kids.
Yeah.
But just know at We Do, it's not a time to assess. It's not a time to catch a kid not using a strategy.
Yeah.
It's a time to let's see how we're doing. Are we ready to move to practice with your buddy with me backing off a little bit?
Yeah.
So it's my most awkward spot of a lesson.
Yeah. So that we ran out of time that day. So as we continue, this will be the second day. So in your own classrooms, that's what happens. You don't always finish a text in one day. rarely does that happen in my comprehension lessons.
For sure.
So this next part is going to be the second day of it, and we continue with that gradual release.
Yeah, and one last thing I wanted to point out, which I'm sure we'll see again, is I want you to notice what a good job Whitney does, always restating the objective, the strategy before they begin reading at each point.
Oh, yeah.
So the kids are reminded again, oh yeah, what am I supposed to be doing? What am I thinking about?
Yeah.
You're really good at restating that for them, and that's a good thing to model for us.
Good.
Good readers?
Good readers.
Summarize.
Summarize.
We say what happened
We say what happened
in just a few words.
in just a few words.
Good readers can also
Good readers can also
make connections.
make a connection.
We think about
We think about
what the author wrote
what the author wrote
and what it reminds us of
and what it reminds us of
in our own lives.
in our own lives.
When we use these strategies,
When we use these strategies,
it helps us understand what we read.
it helps us understand what we read.
Good readers use strategies
Good readers use strategies
during reading.
during reading.
Okay, so yesterday we began this story but had to stop. So we had summarized that Luis loves books. We learned our character Luis, and he's not a fictional character. We learned that this story is a non-fiction book or text. It's actual events that have happened. And Luis, loves books so much, he has so many and wants to share them. Some of us made the connection that Mrs. Hunt at our school shares her books too because she's our librarian. Then we summarized that Luis started traveling with how many donkeys? 2 donkeys. He got 2 donkeys. We didn't summarize their names, but think in your head if you remember their names. Blow it in your head. Release. Well, some of you remember Alpha and Beta. And he got 2 donkeys to share his books. And then I made a little note. He's calling it the Biblioburo, which we learned meant the library of donkeys or the donkey library. And then I made a connection. Some of you made this connection. I know a Luis, not this Luis, but a different Luis.
I know what it is.
Some of you made the connection. I travel to places too. Those are great connections. All right, so let's continue reading and deepen our strategy use while we're reading books, because we can do this anytime we're reading, but we're practicing with this book. All right, so he traveled to El Tormento. Pencils in their home?
Good for down.
Good. When the sun burns high in the sky, Luis and the burros stop on a stream to drink the cool water. After they have their fill, Beto balks. Luis pulls and pulls on Beto's reins, but Beto won't budge. The children are waiting for us. At last, the burro gives in and steps across the stream. So at first, I didn't know what box meant, but as I kept reading, I learned that box meant that he's not budging, he's not moving. But at last, the burro gives in and steps across the stream. Deep in the hills, the path is lonelier than ever. Birds' songs are the only sounds they hear. Then, from deep in the shadows, a bandit leaps out. Here's a picture of a bandit, kind of like a robber. Please let us pass, Luis says. The children are waiting. The bandit scowls at the books, but he takes one and growls. Next time, I want silver. Give me your silver. So let's stop for a moment. This is what good readers do. We summarize in our head. Think of what the author wrote and say it in your head in just a few words. Today, we're going to move on to you guys sharing together. So 1, you're going to share your summary first. Then 2, you might need to say, I agree with your summary, or I have something to add. Teach. Turn your face.
said I want your Why does he need?
Okay, who would like to share the summary they came up with? I heard great thinking. All right.
Why did the bandit want stove?
So let's think. What you just said, Jade, was it a summary or something else? That was a question. Jot that off to the side, Jade. Remember that question, but right now, let's do our summary. Yes.
The donkey went back
Bach. Yeah, that's a cool word.
the donkey went back and a robber came up and said, I want your silver.
The donkey balked and a robber wanted silver. Who can add to that? I think we're missing something pretty critical. There's a little piece.
That Luis wanted to get through.
Yep, so the donkey balked. Luis wanted to get through. That would be great too.
And the robber took a book instead.
Yes, the robber wanted silver, but stole or took
A book
a
instead.
book. Ah, darn it. Okay, so that's what happened. Now that's what happened in the story. Now we're going to think, what did that remind me of? In my life, oh yeah, that reminds me of bees. You're going to share first. A great way to start a connection is, that reminds me of, we're making a connection. Bees teach.
That kind of reminds me of my mom. That one big one reminds me My mom wants to get through a lot.
I heard some great connections. After you listened to each other, you started writing, continue writing. Here's a couple connections I've heard. Some of you made the connection to the bandit. And instead of bandit, often we use the word robber. I've seen a robber on the news. Some of you talked about a robber that you've seen. Nice, some of you are like, yep, that was maybe me. Okay, who has a very different connection? Not about the robber or the bandit.
The time when my mom, we were driving and we didn't have as much gas because we needed to get gas, and then we couldn't drive.
So something stopped you from getting to where you needed to go. That's a great connection. Maybe it wasn't a bandit or a robber, but there's something that made it difficult for you to get somewhere. That's a great connection. Okay, turn your page so we're ready for our next thought. We're going to continue summarizing and making connections. Turn your page, pencil in its home. Excellent.
All right, so during this part, you can see there's tons of interaction. You're actually still having to do a lot of work to get them to make connections. So connections, it's a more difficult strategy for your students for sure.
Yep.
Teachers, I think you just need to be aware of how hard it is to get kids to do this type of thinking and be ready with those questions that will guide them to be able to make the connections to do the thinking. That's probably the key for sure in watching just the struggle of it. It's worth it. It's the only way to teach it, but it is a struggle. The struggle is real.
Yeah. So I could either evaluate this lesson and maybe the next year, maybe I don't use connection. Maybe there's better text for connection and I choose a different strategy. Or maybe I need to back off the summary a little bit more and put more emphasis on connection. I don't know. What would you suggest when it was hard for the students to make connections?
It is. And you've done connections before as a single strategy.
Yes.
Sometimes when you combine two strategies, they just have a hard time. And sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean that you chose the wrong strategy. It's just the combination
of both.
Yeah. But they have to be able to do multiple strategies eventually. So we have to make that leap at some point.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, you could try combining a different strategy if you wanted, but who's to say? That might be just as taxing.
Okay.
I do want to point out also that while Whitney's doing the reading of the text, she does really nice incidental vocabulary teaching. So she'll read and come to a word and then just quickly define it right there in the text. I call that incidental vocabulary teaching. And there's a couple of those that came along and you did a really nice job teaching those. There may be a few words that you want to kind of hit on after you're done reading this text.
Yeah, Bach would be a great word, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's a fun word, and it's one that they've probably never heard, but it really wasn't important to teach before the lesson because you were able to just do that incidental to understand the text, but it could be a fun one to do post-reading.
Yeah.
So... all right, let's see how they do as you continue to release that thinking.
Yeah.
The biblioburro continues on its way over the hills until at last Luis sees houses below. The children of El Tormento run to meet him. Good, we're thinking of a summary in our head. We're remembering what happened. Luis insists on reading a story before they choose books to borrow. Today, I have a surprise for you, he says. He reaches behind the books and pulls out a bundle of masks. Little piglets. Put on a mask and I'll read you a tale about pigs. Good, we're summarizing in our head, remembering what the author wrote. When the story ends, it's time for everyone to choose a book. The children hold their books close as they say goodbye and walk home. So think of the summary in your head, what just happened. Think. B's, you share first. So A's, you're gonna be like, I agree with your summary, or maybe I have something to add to your summary. Share and then start writing. Teach. Great discussing your summaries. Make sure you started writing them after you discussed them. Our summaries should be pretty short. They shouldn't be super long. So sometimes when we say a summary, it might be really long. We might have to say it again to get it shorter. So a lot of you had lots of words to share. This was a good one that I saw. Some of you said, he made it to the village, or place was the word I heard you guys say, but I'm going to change it to village. He made it to the place. He read the children a book about pigs. The kids borrowed books. Those were three important things that happened. He made it to the village, he read them books, and then the kids borrowed books. Now let's think of a connection. This part of the story reminded me of, so what we just read and summarized, what did that remind me of? Think. This reminded me of. B, share your connection first. Teach.
This reminded me of dolphins.
Okay, start jotting it down. While you're jotting, let's let one person share. She's absent. Share yours or your neighbor's connection, and I'll write it.
It's like Mrs. Hunt reads us a book and then we go check out.
Okay, that reminded you. Mrs. Hunt reads us a book, and then you check out. She's our librarian. Some of you put up your, ooh, I had that similar connection. Raise your hand if you had a different connection.
This book reminds me of Dogman.
Reminds you of Dogman. What part about Dogman does this book remind you of? Because Dogman reads a book. So just like in this story, they're reading books. In the book Dogman, they're reading books as well. Great connection.
When my mom and me go to the bookstore and we borrow books.
So when I go to a bookstore and borrow books, great example. Do you purchase those books or do you borrow them to return later?
I buy them.
You buy them. Cool. So that's a little bit different, huh? You buy them, but it's very similar. You're making a connection, getting books for yourself. Awesome. Pencil in its home.
Put words down.
Okay, so during this part, you're still having them do a lot of the thinking, but what I noticed that you did differently that I think helped is you clearly divided the strategies. They summarized, and then we did connections, and that seemed to help quite a bit.
Yeah.
So that was a good choice, and you probably did that based upon your formative assessment, that it was a little bit too hard to do them exactly together.
I wish I could remember what I was thinking in the moment, but we can be safe to say, yep, I realized, okay, keep them separated, and that did help, right?
All right, nice job.
We're going to summarize. So think of what's happening. Keep it in your head. Luis and Alpha and Bago head back over and around the hills, across the grasslands and streams, and into the sunset.
Wait, I'm supposed to.
And far away in the hills, candles and lanterns burn as the children read borrowed books deep into their night, too. We're going to use our neighbors again. Neighbor A, share your thinking first. How did the story end? What happened? What did the author write in a few words? And then B, agree or add on. A's you got in your head. B's you got yours in your head. Teach.
Okay. They were heading back.
Great, this is what I heard from many of you. They went back home and read books at night. That would be a great summary of just simply, as small as possible, a few words, what happened. That's what happened, huh? If you add a little bit more words than that, that's fine. But this is the most important part. They went back home and read at night, deep into the night. So now, that's what just happened. Think of a connection in your head. This reminds me of something in your life. Joshua, say it in your head. A's, you're going to share your connection first. Then B's, share your connection and start writing. Don't write while your partner's talking. That's not polite. We listen, then we can write. We talk and listen, then write. A's, you're up first. Share your connection. Teach.
Okay.
I heard great connections. Keep writing down your connections. Many of you had very different connections this time. Share your connections.
When I read books at night too.
Great, that's the one connection I'll share. I heard many others. Way to jot down your connection quickly. All right, tomorrow we will wrap up this story. We'll maybe reread little parts of it and have a great discussion about the story. So we need to keep this graphic organizer so we can use it to help us even dive deeper into this story. So class, pencil and so. Excellent. Think of the 2 strategies we worked on to really help us understand what we read. Think. Blow it in your hand. Say the first one.
Summarize.
Connection. We summarized and made connections. Those are 2 great strategies to help us understand what we read. All right.
Okay, so on this last bit, we noticed that you didn't fully hand the thinking to the kids, so there wasn't really independent.
Nope, this was a Tuesday. So you saw Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So are you planning to do independent of these 2 strategies with a completely different text?
Yes, so there would have been, this was the big book in our program, then there would be a book either in their anthology or like a printable story. So, and then I would probably start with they do together and then break it into independent. So guide it into they're doing it together still and then get into independent as quickly as I need to.
Nice. So you take the gradual release across the entire week of your strategies.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Nice.
And at different parts of the year, I will have like that second text. So if you saw the next day, Wednesday, I try to get them being the readers of the text instead of me reading aloud. So that's something else to think about that adds a whole different dimension.
For sure. Yeah. In the lower grades, that becomes something that is worthy of talking about on another video. Nice. Well, again, thanks so much for letting us into your classroom and watching you be explicit. We got to see some great language on teaching 2 strategies at the same time, how to gradually release those strategies, and ways to engage those students in read, talk, write.
And I wish I said that in today's lesson. I do other times, but didn't see it this week.
So you followed my favorite pattern.
I follow the pattern. I need to say it more.
Yeah.
So.
You
so
did
good to
read,
watch yourself.
Stop, think, talk, write. Read, stop, think, talk, write. That's the pattern, and you did it.
Yep.
So was great.
Good.
Thank you.
Well, hopefully you got something out of this video and try something in your classroom like this. And check out, we have tons of comprehension lessons. If you just need a head start of how to write your own lessons like this, we've got lots of resources. So I'll put all the links below. And thanks for watching.
Yeah.
And we'll see you in the next video.
Simply teach.